name is Richie Tran, and this is my final project for Korean 34100. It is on JSA Joint Security Area. So first we'll go over the agenda. The agenda will be the review of the director, release date, and other information about the movie. Then we'll review the main cast. Then we'll do a synopsis of the movie. Then the historical context for the movie and what I learned just from the plot and story. So first, review of the movie. Um, so here's a review of the movie. It was released September 9, 2000. It's around 110 minutes. It's produced by these two people, Shim and Lee. And then my favorite part is the cinematography, the zoom-ins and kind of the characters' perspectives. That was produced by Kim Seong-bok. Here are some awards that the film / actor / director won. There's a couple more, but here's just a small list. As far as the main cast, we have Lee Byung-kyung as Sergeant Lee So-hyuk. He's a South Korean soldier. Then we got Song Kang-ho as Sergeant Oh Kyung-pil, a North Korean soldier. They have Lee Yong-ai as a Swiss Korean neutral officer. And then we have some supporting characters like Kim and Shin, who both represent a South and North Korean soldier. The way this kind of movie worked was it was a lot of flashbacks and interactions between these 5 characters. So here's the synopsis of the movie. So again, JSA Joint Security Area kind of represents the what's happening in the DMZ, which is a fortified border between North and South Korea. It talks about kind of the tensions between these two areas through a story. And so this story begins with a deadly shooting at a North Korean border house just across the quote-unquote bridge of no return. 2 North Korean soldiers are killed and a wounded South Korean soldier, Sergeant Lee So-hyuk, seen on the last page on the left, but on this page on the far right. Essentially, he tries to flee back to the South Korean side among just a whole bunch of firing that's happening between both sides. And so this incident really puts the fragile relationship between the 2 Koreas on the edge of collapse. And so it is the job of Swiss Army Major Sophie Eugene, deployed by the Neutral Nations Supervisory Commission, to investigate what really happened. And so as the investigation unfolds, it becomes very clear that the 2 sides are presenting 2 very different stories. Sergeant Lee on the left confesses to the shootings, but claims he was kidnapped by North Korean soldiers while relieving himself. And then he states that he managed to wake himself up in the border house, free himself, and shot the soldiers in self-defense, killing 2. However, the sergeant on the right claimed that the sergeant on the right, the only North Korean soldier left alive, states that Lee barged in the house and started shooting everybody before retreating when he started firing back. So the autopsy report raises more questions than it answers. One of the North Korean soldiers, Jung Woo-jin, was shot 8 times, suggesting a personal vendetta. Additionally, a single bullet is unaccounted for. The investigation takes a darker turn when a key witness, Private First Class Nam Sung-shik, the 4th character in the main cast, but not shown in this slide, he attempts suicide. So, Major Swiss Army Gene notices the different emotional reactions between the different characters, and this kind of clues her in on what really happened, and the fact that they were more than just enemies. They were trying to, they were really friends, protecting each other. And in these different scenes, we're getting flashbacks. So that's kind of how the story plays. So through these flashbacks, through one of the flashbacks, we learned how Sergeant Lee initially, in his initial kind of training, while on patrol, he accidentally crossed the North Korean territory, but he was saved by Sergeant Oh Woo-jin, the person in the back, after the person in the front stood on a landmine. So the North Korean soldiers It was the person in the back and another character. Uh, they both deactivated a landmine that Lee had almost triggered, and so because of that, over the next few weeks, Lee and Oh maintained contact as North Korean soldiers through secret messages sent over the border. Eventually, um, they began meeting in person, forming a close knit group that included Sung Shik, which is the last South Korean soldier. And despite the political divide, they they decided to focus on the friendship rather than like their national loyalties. However, as tensions between the North and South increased, um, their secret meetings became more and more dangerous. And so eventually, one night, Lee and Sung Shik returned to North Korea border to celebrate Woojin's birthday and say goodbye. Fortunately, they were discovered by a North Korean commanding officer, leading to a tense standoff. In the chaos that followed, Sung Shik, in a panic, uh, shot and killed both the officer and Woo Jin, while Lee and were left to cover the incident. Oh convinced Lee to shoot him in the shoulders to create an alibi, allowing the two South Korean soldiers to go back, but the guilt weighs on essentially everybody here. So at the end of the investigation, Major Jean is removed because she had ties to North Korea, which compromised her neutrality, but she still attempts to uncover the full truth. So essentially, it's revealed that Lee's bullets struck Woo Jin first, and so therefore he's riddled with guilt and unable to live with his role in the death of his friends. He essentially steals another officer's pistol and commits suicide. So at the end of the movie, we see that it ends with several haunting images. This is one. It's an old photograph taken by American tourists accidentally capturing kind of all four soldiers together before a tragedy. So this image symbolizes the moments of peace and friendship that existed between them before ultimately being destroyed by the harsh realities of what's happening between Korea. So now we're on the historical context. So we have the division of North Korea. So this was in due to the Cold War tensions, where the Soviet Union controlled the North and the U.S. the South. This intentions, this division eventually created the communist North Korea and the capitalist South Korea. And then there's the Korean War. This is the war where North Korea, supported by the Soviet Union and China, invaded South Korea. Millions of deaths, and there was an armistice, but no necessary peace treaty, um, leaving these two technically still at war. Then we have the DMZ and the JS, where kind of like this entire movie takes place. So some more history about it is it's a 160-mile long buffer zone between North and South Korea, and it's the only place where forces from both sides stand and face each other, and has been the site of kind of like negotiations and violent incidents both. And then finally, we got the bridge of no return, the place where in the movie a lot of events happen. So this was historically used for prison exchanges after the Korean War, but it essentially symbolizes irreversible decisions made during the conflict and to this day. So what I learned about the Joint Security Area were a few things. First, humanity beyond borders. So it shows that despite any political or ideological differences, people on any side can share common human experiences and emotions. And so the friendship between the soldiers kind of illustrate that they're more than just instruments of the state, but they have their own like hopes, fears, and empathy. And then next we have the fragility of peace. So this kind of talks about how peace can easily be shattered by a simple misunderstanding that escalates further and further to the point where different organizations, including neutral third parties, have to de-escalate the issue to prevent any war. Third thing I learned was kind of like the cost of division. So essentially, there's personal and emotional costs of division, especially within a nation. So the secret meetings essentially depicted a lot of what a lot of Koreans want, which is like unity, but because of how the countries are, um, there's separations. There's separations causing a lot of conflict and unnecessary pain. And then lastly, I learned about moral ambiguity. So essentially, neither side have a good or bad side. So it just shows that, even looking at the soldiers individually, like, they're essentially victims of their own circumstances. They really don't have any control um, about what necessarily happened in this movie, and so it encourages the viewers to kind of question who's the enemy and who's the ally.